Good.
How about yourself? How you holding up?
I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking. I have a dog with gastrointestinal issues. That's what I have right now. So as if we don't have enough going on, right? Well, welcome to our Return to Learn task force. Shelley, are we set? And we are, it looks like we're on. Great. I just wanted to, again, thank everyone for joining in on these conversations. They're very helpful and very informative for me. We have a couple agenda items today, a couple of things that I would like to talk through with this group. But I did send a quick survey, a Chicagoland survey to you guys earlier this week. I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at it. It wasn't imperative. It was just informational, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Was there anything that anyone wanted to talk through with that, or anything that you noticed coming out of that?
I would say just that everybody is very undecided about everything. It pretty much just said that some are happy, some are not, some are undecided, and that's unanimous all around.
I think I took the exact same thing away from it. Yeah. I think this is a very difficult year. And regardless of what plan districts put in place, there are some who are okay with it and some who are not okay with it. I don't think anyone is super happy and just loving the circumstances around this school year. So yeah, anything else? I think I might bring that one to the board. So Andy and Ann will take a look at it next. And speaking of the board, we had a meeting earlier this week, and we did have some questions come up previous to the board meeting and then at the board meeting and after, just regarding the plan that we have in place, which is the e-learning or remote learning platform being our primary platform. And some questions around, could we adjust our thinking around that? And could we kind of change the platform to be more of a separate? So having kind of the kids who are in person, having more of a live teaching experience, and then the kids who are remote, having more of a remote experience, and creating maybe more like two schedules or two different platforms. So I did want to bring this back to the group as a point of discussion, just to let people kind of talk through that and think about it. As you know, we have our survey that's been out. It is closed. We now have about 65% of our fully remote families who have chosen to stay fully remote. 35% of those families have decided to come back in person. The middle school platform obviously has also been the e-learning, or the remote learning is the primary platform. The middle school administrators have been thinking through their facilities and how many more students they can accommodate into that schedule. At elementary, Kelly Bay and Audrey and I have started meeting with each elementary team to talk through how many students have asked to come in person at each grade level, and thinking through the facilities there and the ways we might be able to accommodate kids. Moving into the second trimester, one of the things that I've been asking or thinking about and talking to parents about is that we want to minimize disruption as much as possible. I think that I will speak for myself. When I was thinking in the summer of this school year, I was anticipating a lot more disruption than we've seen yet, which is a good thing. And I think I was anticipating that the whole year would kind of feel pretty disjointed, which I think is true in some ways, but in other ways, our kids really have settled into schedules and routines in a good way. They've gotten to know their teachers, they've gotten to know the platform that they're on, they've started to adjust, and so have our teachers. And so in the summer, when we were thinking about we can definitely offer, you know, a trimester 2 opt-in and a trimester 3 opt-in. I don't think anyone saw that as being really problematic. And now, you know, and I kind of look at how disruptive this might be to our system, that's why I kind of pulled back and said, I'd really like to know for the rest of the year how many parents are just planning on keeping their kids home. And that question really came from early in June. We had some families that indicated, it doesn't matter what your schedule is, I'm out until this pandemic is over. So I just wanted to know how many families were still in that camp so that we could figure out for the rest of the year how to accommodate anybody who wasn't in that space, who were thinking that possibly they'd want to come back given, you know, whatever the circumstances are. The other situation, before we get to the remote platform in school, the other situation that I'm kind of struggling with is that regardless of what the health metrics are, the positivity indicators, the incidence rates around this virus, until that guidance around 6 feet changes, we can only organize ourselves in so many ways. There's just only so many things that we can do to bring in students. The 6 feet apart guidance is the guidance that is really driving the population of kids that we can bring into school. That is really it. It's like a math geometry problem. We have 6 feet, we got to keep everyone 6 feet apart. And so that's really what we're struggling with, is just there's only so many square feet in the schools. We are looking for some other places that we might be able to utilize outside of the schools, but obviously, you know, that's a difficult thing as well, because those facilities would then have to mirror us in terms of our processes and procedures and all of the equipment and the PPE, and making sure that those environments mirror exactly what we need to do. So there's challenges on that front as well. But I just kind of wanted to put that out there as the thinking around the survey, the general results, basically 65-35. And as we are thinking through this with teams, then the other question we're kind of asking ourselves, and I don't have an answer for it, so this is another thing you can weigh in on, is whether or not we continue to offer a hybrid as a schedule. Because I think we thought, thank you, I think we thought that hybrid would really help us, you know, lower the amount of kids in the building at a given day, and it did, but it also, I'm not sure, helped us enough that we feel like it's worth putting that out there as a scheduled thing anymore. So that's just a question that we have on the table. So with that, you know, I want to open it for discussion or feedback around those trimester 2 results. Any thoughts about moving into trimesters 2 and 3? And again, kind of revisiting or relooking at that e-learning at school, or any thoughts you have on that, why that's beneficial, or how we could rethink that. So I just want to open that up to the group.
So Lisa, if it's okay, if I could, just simply because Joe and I have spent a lot of time looking at the results that we have right now, and since you asked the question about hybrid, I wanted to just put out there for consideration the fact that at the middle school, at least, it has definitely enabled us to bring more kids in. It's opened up seats and allowed us to honor as many of the requests as we have received for in-person up to this point. Given the number of parents who've indicated that they would be interested in an in-person option for trimester 2 and 3, I would tell you that we wouldn't be able to do it without continuing to offer a hybrid. We would not have enough space. That 6-foot distancing piece that you alluded to is exactly right. That's the thing that creates the scenario that we're in. So I just wanted to put that on the table. If we were not to offer the hybrid piece, we would have to be looking at some kind of hybrid for all scenario. And in that case, we would be taking people who are in currently for full 5 days a week and saying they can't be here for a full 5 days. And I know, having talked with some parents, that would be a real big challenge for them. And I would also only offer one other piece of consideration. Certainly I listened to the board meeting on Tuesday night, and I've had conversations with other families who have said, this is hard for us. We really want for our child to be back in school. We want it to be as normal an environment as possible. I have talked to equal numbers, if not more, who have said, it's working for us, and we're grateful for the hybrid option, or we're grateful for the consistency that you have. We do have families that, for a variety of reasons, are going in and out because of either a family member testing positive, or simply being symptomatic, or having a reason to quarantine for 2 weeks. That ability to transition in and out in as seamless a manner as possible, for those families that have experienced it, have been very grateful for it. So I just wanted to put that out there as a thing to keep in mind. While it may not be a perfect model, there are definitely some advantages to what we're doing right now.
Thanks, Nate.
To kind of piggyback off what Nate said, I know myself as a parent and other parents in the community are concerned that have their kids in person right now for 5 days and then having to move to that switch. And also on the teacher end, those of us who have been here in person with full classes have developed those, especially in the early elementary days have developed like routines and a classroom and things. And so it seems for us, it's a little bit daunting to disrupt that for those kids that are already here and been here, that we've established those routines and classroom community with, and our remote partners on the same end working really hard to do that remotely. To shift the 5-day to hybrid, I know that it might be something that we have to do, but I know it's a concern on the teacher end and parent end.
Thanks, Erin.
I apologize if this has been said already. I had a student who was running late, but one other thing that I know has come up in quite a few conversations in terms of MTSS too is when we're looking at switching students around or changing up the programming, one thing to consider is our data systems. I know like STAR, for example, it's very challenging to switch students between teachers and some data may be lost. And I know that's something we'd like to avoid. So not a obstacle we can't get past, but just a consideration, like Nate said.
Thanks, Tim. And for MTSS, just, I know not everyone is on the call is a teacher. So I just want to clarify, MTSS is sort of the way we support students through interventions who may be struggling or who may be above grade level, kind of providing additional supplemental support to the core curriculum. And so some of our systems that we use, programming that we use, are technology based and depend on rostering and putting students with particular teachers. And so when we talk about maybe a switch of teacher, that looking at those systems and making sure we're not losing any of that data around how a student might be progressing or moving through an intervention is really important. So I appreciate, Tim, you bringing that up.
One thing that's a concern for, I know for fine arts and for wellness at the middle school, we were able to kind of have the kids that are in person be in particular courses that use less movement or make less noise, as you would. And so I know going forward, that will only last for another quarter or so. And then we're going to have to try and figure out how we will accommodate the students that are in person for PE if they are 5 days a week, and for the physical activity, that we know that we want them to have instead of just being on their screens or doing reports or things like that. So I know that's a concern for us, just figuring out where we're going to accommodate the students that need to move or do other kinds of activities, acting, singing, playing instruments, things like that.
Yeah, the Music Association came out with some guidance just recently, and I think they have kiddos, 10 feet. It's like 8 feet apart unless you're, a trombone, and then it's 10 feet apart. Singing is 10 feet apart. I only know trombone because my son plays trombone, so I know that guidance. So I know everybody's itching to get back to, especially the related arts, because a lot of our kids come to school for that in particular. And, it's been, like I've said this before publicly, it's been really, really hard on my son, who's a band kid, to lose that part of his day in high school. It's been really difficult. It's a really big part of some of our kids' lives. And so that's a great question, Ann. Thanks for bringing it up. I do want to kind of put something out there in terms of another sort of reason behind the e-learning platform in school or the remote learning platform in school. And maybe teachers can weigh in on this. But one of the thoughts around doing that was also about allowing our teachers the opportunity to plan together really tightly on that remote platform. And instead of having teachers kind of planning two different types of instruction. So that having teachers focus on that one platform together as a group, I think, has allowed some of our teams to divide and conquer the work, because both in-person and remote teachers have had to adjust a lot of their instructional methods, a lot of their instructional tools, a lot of their classroom management tools. There's just been an entire overhaul of teaching and learning in general. And so from my end and from our administrative team's end, we really wanted to focus the planning efforts in one place. So the lessons and the scope and sequence and the skills and learning targets were all sort of focused, and the teams could work on those together so that each teacher had the freedom to be able to figure out all these new and different ways that they would have to be instructing. And I don't know if teams can speak to that, if that's been helpful.
I can speak to that. My team met with you this morning, so it's very fitting. My team meets every single morning for at least an hour, if not longer, to really make sure that we are on the exact same page. And I find that if we didn't have each other, this process would have been a lot harder. And I think we're all really leaning on each other and really appreciating that time that we do have in the morning as of now to work together and to really ensure that all of our students are receiving that same exact learning experience, because we really do want to make sure that parents who are feeling like they want to keep their kids remote are still receiving that same educational experience, the same skills, the same lessons, and all of that. So I think that working really closely together has been essential. I don't think that this could have worked any other way, and I don't think it would have been fair any other way. So I really just have really appreciated my team, and I know all the teachers in our school love each other and we work really well together. And I think without that, this would have been almost an impossible task. So I think knowing that kids who are sitting right here in front of me are getting that same skill as the kids who are sitting on their couch perhaps is really assuring. So
Thanks, Amanda.
I'll piggyback off Amanda. I think that time has been really great to have, and that we have really all teams have worked really hard to make sure that we're very in sync in what we're teaching, so that all the kids are provided with the same instruction and getting the same learning opportunities. I do know that in kindergarten, having all the pre-recorded videos has been a big struggle with kids adjusting to school and looking at a screen all day. So we've adjusted a little bit but each remote and in person are getting live taught instruction from a teacher, whether it's on Zoom or in the classroom. They're still getting the same instruction that we've planned out as teams. And they're just getting it delivered in a different way, but they are getting more of a live experience with the teacher. Just with we realized that our kindergartners really just needed more from us as a person and guidance to walk through. And we have the same things that we teach every week, but it also gives us more flexibility to put in breaks when we need them. And for our kindergartners who are adjusting from being back in school for full time. And we've seen a lot of improvements and engagement since then.
Thanks, Erin.
From a middle school perspective, I think the remote platform has been helpful. It's been helpful in a number of ways. In terms of is it the way that I would like to be teaching? No, it's certainly not. And I think everybody would agree with that. But what it has done, and when I think about my own kids who go to Cherokee, they're in for half a day. So they have 3 hours of in-person learning, and then they have 2 hours of asynchronous at home learning. But if they were to have to go out of school, Cherokee has a total remote program that they call their AVA, they're not allowed to go into that for like, say, a 2-week quarantine. So then they're just really relying on asynchronous work being sent home, and they're missing out on that live instruction. And so if that happens to a student here, which it has happened, it's not a huge change other than the fact that it has to happen at home. And so supervision of the students obviously has to switch, but it's nice how we have it sort of streamlined, and that I think can be really smooth and easy for the student because they're kind of into it. They know their routine, whether they're in the building or not in the building. So I think that's really helpful. I also appreciate the time in the morning because doing the remote platform, every single lesson, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous that I'm putting out there, that I'm delivering, is modified. I can't do anything the same that I did, in my 14 other years in teaching. It's all different. And so I am a new teacher, and I feel like I'm treading water essentially every day. But I'm happy to have the students here. And as a facilitator in a classroom on A days, the depending on hybrid or not hybrid, the 14 students that I'm in there with pretty much every other day, it's nice to see those students and have an opportunity to interact with those students. And so anyway, I don't know, I don't know that this is the best method in the time, but in terms of what I think we're trying to accomplish, especially at the middle school, I think it's been effective, and I think it has a lot of positives to it and a lot of flexibility to it from if things do change, or for individual families, but also just as a whole school. So I'm appreciative of kind of that morning time that a lot of the staff is given. I know not everybody has that because we're trying to meet some needs of some of our population, but many teachers do have it. I think that's really valuable. I'm appreciative of the fact that we're really trying to stick to this remote platform for the ease of students that might have to shift out for anywhere from 2 days because of a symptom and then they get a test, or maybe 2 weeks because of a quarantine because of a family member. They're still able to access that same information that they still get that same kind of FaceTime from their teacher for that class that they would, and they're not missing out on it. Like, say if my kids were to have to do that, they're going to miss out on potentially 2 weeks of actual like delivered instruction. So I think this is a nice setup for those instances.
I appreciate that. I do want to address, some parents have asked a question about whether or not I've articulated with other districts around their programming. And I do actually meet once a week with all Lake County superintendents, and we have many, many spreadsheets going, tracking how every district is handling this differently. And then I also meet on Friday mornings with some other districts who are trying to bring students back, or who have brought students back. And each district is handling it very, very differently. Every district has a different schedule. Every district has a different arrangement in terms of how they're organizing asynchronous learning, how they're handling related arts and specials, whether or not they're focused on certain core material versus all material, whether or not they're having kids move between classrooms or teachers move between classrooms. There is strict guidance that we need to follow, but then there's a lot of wiggle room in the guidance as well, because every district has a unique set of circumstances. Every district has different facilities, different numbers of staff, different student to staff ratio, different technology ability, different finances, different community perceptions or community desires around whether they want to be in person or not. And so and this is always the case, it's not like this is a new situation. Every district runs school differently anyway. We all have different schedules. We all have different, amounts of time for ELA and math and different related arts that we offer. And that is because of all those different aspects. And I just want to highlight the fact that the LVTC, the teachers union and their leadership, as well as our administrative team, worked really closely together this summer to identify and analyze all of the situational, issues that we have here in Lake Bluff, look at the guidance and figure out the best way that we could do it in our community. Like I said, I think we are thrust into another kind of upheaval here with trying to do more for our community that wants, maybe there are some of our community members that want that more of an in-person experience. And I know that that's been difficult for our teachers and community to kind of think through how this is going to look. And I don't have the answer for it right now, but I can tell you, like I said, the conversations have already started with our administrative team and with teams of teachers to co-solve this issue again and try to minimize disruption for everyone, because I think it's not just students that we want to minimize disruption. We also want our teachers to be able to continue in the groove and in the routines and in the things that they have been able to get going, so that it's seamless for everybody. There are situations that we're still going to have to deal with. I'm going to be really upfront with you guys. The metrics in Lake County don't look great. Our community metrics have been good. Lake Bluff has gone kind of up and then way down and then up and then down. But so far, no more than a week have we spent kind of in a tough situation or in terms of our positivity or incidence rates. And a week is about what we're looking for before we start to try to figure out if we need to change. The health department has said to us multiple times, we have to look at all kinds of data to make those decisions. And we should be looking for a trend of at least a week in the data before we were to make a shift. But Lake County itself is on a warning list right now. And if the county were to decide we're going to take some extra mitigation, we need to be ready for that as well. So I don't know how this fall or how this winter is going to go in terms of the flu. There's been all sorts of speculation in terms of what might happen when COVID and flu and everything else that usually comes out, if they sort of, collide. Some medical professionals will say that things will be better because everybody's masked up and 6 feet apart and nobody should be interacting anyway. So maybe the flu won't even be as bad. The Southern Hemisphere did not see the flu as bad as they have in the past. And some people are anticipating we won't see it as bad. As a reminder, the flu shot this year does take care of the strain that they're seeing. So please get your flu shot. But some folks are thinking that maybe we're in for a second wave, and there are some parts of the country that are experiencing that. So again, we're part of Lake and McHenry, that region 9, which is an Illinois identified region. We look at those numbers and we look at Lake County numbers and we look at zip code numbers. But either way, I don't see us being able to change from that 6-foot guidance, being able to stop wearing masks, being able to really change what our instructional model looks like for the remainder of the school year. That's what I think right now. And that idea hasn't changed for a while. There's some folks that feel like maybe by fall we'll be in a much better spot because vaccinations are coming out. Probably not by the election, but probably around, the first quarter of 2021. They're producing lots of vaccinations. Lake County is working on drive-through vaccinations. They have parking lots identified. They've been doing it with the flu shot. Like, they're working on how to do mass vaccinations. But we also know that not everyone will take advantage of that right away. So we need to be prepared for the fact that this could be going more until, fall of winter of next year, until we feel like we've really kind of, we're over the hump. So with that, anything else that anyone wants to share as we're working towards finalizing our plans for trimester 2?
Can I this is not necessarily trimester 2 related, but something that I've been thinking about that we've talked with families about. It's still continuing to happen. I think this is a good forum to just announce again for anyone who is watching or is here. We are still getting requests from parents to be remote if they are traveling or going out of town or taking a long weekend. And to Mr. DeYoung's point, we have designed a process for that transition to be seamless from in-person to remote, but it is not designed for that. And so if a student can't self-certify because they are experiencing symptoms, or a sibling or family member is awaiting COVID results, we want students to have access to the learning. We want that to be readily available. But we want to accommodate, but we also need to be realistic. So if families are traveling, certainly logging on to complete assignments and work within Google Classroom or Seesaw, But we really do want to be cautious about sort of creating the mechanism for them accessing live instruction when there's just a lot of other things going on in the background. And I think that's really out of respect for their classmates and for their teachers. So I just wanted to go out there and say that again.
Thanks, Kelly. The other issue is we do have a lot of families that want to be in person. And so we want to make sure that we are reserving the spots for in-person learning for the families who are really committed to making the good faith effort to be there every day. Nate, did you want to say anything else?
I won't belabor the point. I just want to second what Kelly said. Same at the middle school. We have the same experience and we would make the same request.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the group?
I just want to share a really quick joy. I have a 5th grader and a 3rd grader, both at home currently, and my 5th grader who's in Bethany's class. We make them start about 8:45 every day, doing some asynchronous stuff and catching up and getting ahead or whatever. And this morning, my 5th grader, about 8:30, says, "Dad, can I start school early? I have some stuff I'm really looking forward to today," which was really awesome to hear. So I don't know what it was, but thanks, Bethany, and thanks to all of you, because I know you're all having similar, students having similar experiences. So I just wanted to share that because it was new and fresh and just an hour ago. So, so whatever it was, thanks. She's excited about the day. So that's nice to hear as a parent.
Thanks for sharing that, Andy. Great job, Bethany. I know everyone's got those great stories, and I try to pass on the information when I get it to, sent to me. Our teachers are really amazing, and I can't say it enough, and our parents are, and we know you're in it with us. The partnership is more real than ever this year. So thanks to everyone for everything you're doing for our kids. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. Remember, always email us with thoughts, phone calls, whatever sort of feedback you have. We're open to it. We're thinking through it. We're considering every angle of this to try to do what's best. So thanks, everybody.